global nicotine trade and how tobacco came to be so popular. Tobacco was a plant that first grew in the Americas. It contains nicotine and most likely first grew in central Mexico. It was used first by the Native Americans, mostly in religious ceremonies. When Christopher Columbus came to the Americas in 1492, the Native Americans presented him with dried tobacco leaves as a gift. While in Cuba, Columbus witnessed the indigenous people smoking cigars. So he brought the tobacco back to Europe with him, and soon enough it was spread all over Europe, Africa, Asia, and the world. It became a big economic resource and was even used as currency. It was America's first cash crop and was first cultivated by indentured servants, but when the demand for tobacco grew, they started using African slave labor instead. At first, tobacco, although a good economic resource, was only smoked by a few as cigars were still hard to come by. But in 1880, inventor James Bonsack created a machine that could manufacture 200 cigarettes per minute. Manufacturing of cigarettes became much cheaper and many more could be produced. Smoking rates really increased during World War I. Cigarettes and tobacco were given to soldiers as rations, and they even used them as currency. For example, one haircut would be 2 cigarettes. Many soldiers smoked their first cigarettes in the trenches. After the First World War, millions of men were now smokers, and after the Second War, the rates increased even more. With the induction of the Marshall Plan, the U.S. sent 40,000 tons of tobacco over to Europe, and specifically Germany, to boost morale and the economy. 4 in 5 British men were now smokers, so as you can see, smoking was becoming an even more popular habit. The problem tobacco companies were now facing is that women weren't smoking, and that was about half their market. So they started making advertisements targeting women and claiming liberation, weight loss, and more. Around 1957, scientists began making connections between cancer and smoking. One way they did this was by painting tobacco on the backs of mice who would end up getting cancer. The leaders of the big tobacco companies met up in Paris with their lawyers. They decided to double down on advertising with ads such as these, with support from health professionals. And that is how tobacco became so popular.
Hi everyone. So we're going to be starting off by talking about the science of nicotine and how it kind of works on our body. So I've included here what the molecule of nicotine actually looks like. So first we're going to be talking about how it works on our body, specifically on our neurons. So I've illustrated here what we call the neuromuscular junction. And so we have the presynaptic neuron and the postsynaptic neuron. And our body experiences a sort of voltage in the presynaptic neuron, and it's called your action potential. And these action potentials are able to open up these voltage-gated calcium channels and allow an influx of calcium to enter inside our presynaptic neuron. And in doing so, they're able to bind to these little vesicles that contain, which are basically pockets of neurotransmitters. And in this situation in particular, these neurotransmitters are called acetylcholine, or ACH for short. And these calcium ions bind to these vesicles and allow them to experience exocytosis so that these neurotransmitters are able to float out into the synapse in the area in between the presynaptic and postsynaptic neuron. And what we have on the postsynaptic neuron are these nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. And these acetylcholine sort of bind to these receptors and are able to flow through and induce some sort of response on the postsynaptic neuron. In terms of nicotine, it's an agonist of acetylcholine. So that means that they're able to bind to the same nicotinic acetylcholine receptors and induce a similar response. So this includes increased heart rate, blood pressure, increased attention, feelings of dopamine, epinephrine or norepinephrine, which is part of your fight or flight response.
Moving on to one of the most important subjects surrounding nicotine, addiction.
Every year, millions of Americans try to quit smoking, and millions fail.
Hospitalized with lung failure. His doctors suspect vaping was the cause.
It ended up becoming my oxygen. I couldn't live without it.
About 70% of smokers who want to kick the cigarette habit, but researchers believe that nicotine could be at least as addictive as heroin.
So one of the myths surrounding nicotine use is that you can't get addicted after just one hit or after just one puff. But that's completely wrong. Nicotine reaches the brain faster than drugs that enter through our veins. It actually reaches the brain within 10 seconds of smoking it, meaning that the reward is almost immediate with nicotine. But in the long run, the reward is really short-lived, meaning that you're going to find yourself craving nicotine a lot faster and a lot more often than you would for other drugs. Over time, you'll actually build a tolerance to the feelings of pleasure that it brings, like happiness, relaxation, the buzz, and you won't feel the symptoms as easy, meaning that you're going to need more and more nicotine to feel the same way that you felt maybe the first or the second time that you tried it. Now, one of the reasons that it makes you feel happy, relaxed, and buzzed is because of, 1, the release of epinephrine, better known as adrenaline, and 2, the release of dopamine, which is better known as the happy chemical. Now, as you can see here, the synapse with nicotine contains a lot more of these purple dots representing dopamine, and the synapse without nicotine just has the normal amount of dopamine. And does this mean that smokers are necessarily happier than non-smokers? No, that's not really true, because non-smokers will produce the natural amount of dopamine in their body when they are actually happy, whereas smokers will only produce it when they are smoking, meaning that the brain will start to rely on nicotine to produce the dopamine and it will stop producing it itself.
Okay, bye. Oh, wait, your jacket. Oh, she's gone.
This is that e-cig that she takes around with her everywhere. I wonder what all the hype is about. One hit can't hurt, right?
Just give it back to her next time.
Are these things calm me down? Not bad.
No, you don't understand. I need it. I went through them already. I promise I'm good for it this time, okay? Please, anything. Okay, my car for a lifetime supply. Deal? Okay, thank you.
It's never just one hit.
Hey man, don't smoke. Yes, I know, but I'm addicted to it. I cannot control myself. Do you know smoke can cause many diseases? Yes, I know, but no worries. I think they're not serious. No, they are more than your imagination. Here's a diagram of our body. I will use the black marker to mark the affected organ by nicotine and the smoking. First, it may cause the breathing problem, like the COPD in lung. And then it will cause the heart disease or heart stroke. It will increase the risk of blood clots. It will also may lead to the type 2 diabetes. It will also weaken our immune system, probably leading to the infection. It will also cause the hearing or vision loss. It will also affect the fertility problem, like it will make more difficult to feel pregnant or affect sperm quality. It will also cause the osteoporosis, a bone disease. It will also cause the dental problem, like increase the risk of gum disease, tooth loss, and tooth sensitivity. Most importantly, it will cause the lung cancer, mostly lung cancer, and it will also cause the cancer on everywhere of our body. So I will mark everywhere black. As you see, the whole diagram become black. So you see how serious the nicotine can affect our body. So let's smoke less and keep health.